I have a few things to look at today. So DFF, they say more stuff that would interest me, apparently, so I have timestamps to look at. Thank you to everyone, by the way, who sends in recommendations. Apparently in this, they talk about the CECOT, El Salvador concentration camp, right? Let's call it what it is. An illegal prison camp where we send people without due process to be disappeared. Right now, he's starting with the lowest hanging fruit. Pretty soon, I'm sure the trans athletes will be headed there as well. This is from Tuesday. So we have this, and then we have, just from earlier today, we had another hot take, I guess, that happens pretty early on in the episode. So we're going to be responding to both of those, I guess.
That one's gonna. Dude, have you guys seen this picture that's going around of that prison in El Salvador where Trump is sending like.
I think he's talking about the picture with like the pile of bodies or whatever, which I don't think that's real, guys. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is real. Pixel. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could it's possible to get clearer satellite images of the compound, right? But for some reason, like that one is super blurry. And I mean, look, I mean, we don't need that image to even make to even say like it's possible they're executing people here, right? That's totally possible that, that picture is not a requisite to think like they could be doing illegal executions. It could be a death camp, right? That's completely possible, especially because there's so many unaccounted people there who were just disappeared. They also did the thing yesterday. Did you see where Senator Van Hollen got to meet with Abrego?
Yeah, I saw the screenshot of him like at the table.
Yeah.
By screenshot, I mean photograph.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Why don't we watch that? Because apparently they did a press conference today that I haven't seen yet. It's 42 minutes long. Okay. So I believe he just hugged the guy's wife, and this is the guy's mom. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm just from what I've seen of the news. Are they saying Hamas? Are these anti-Zionists? Do we need to lock them up too?
No, they're speaking Spanish.
Oh, thanks.
It's good to be home.
I killed the joke.
I love the serial killer in the back here. This is me.
Now we need to end the illegal abduction of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and bring him home too.
Oh, by the way, this just came out a couple hours ago that the Supreme Court is blocking him deporting people under the Alien Enemies Act. So since I think this press conference, that's come out.
We need to bring Mr. Abrego Garcia home to protect his
and let me just say too, for the people, if we end up keeping this in the stream or whatever, this to me, the Kilmar Abrego Garcia thing, the concept of just taking people off the streets, black bagging them and shipping them to another country to go in a illegal prison where nobody has any oversight, that to me is like one of those obvious fascist things. That's another line that Trump has crossed that most, as far as I know, no other president has really crossed. Like, you can say, well, like Obama disappeared people or Bush had Guantanamo Bay, and that's true, but those, that's different than like rounding people up in the streets, right? This to me, and that hasn't been like the official policy, right? That's not what they lead with. And the Supreme Court didn't instruct them to stop doing that. Like the Supreme Court never ruled against Guantanamo Bay. Maybe they should have, but they didn't. They have in this case, and Trump is in open defiance of now, not only has he usurped the legislative branch, but he's also in defiance of the judicial branch of the government. It's just, we're watching a complete fascist takeover of an autocrat. It's very scary times. I'll just say that. It's very interesting. We've never been here in American history, but the Kilmar Abrego Garcia thing has, to me, it's been very severe. It's been a very scary thing to watch. It's very much just it's a horrible sign of the times we're living in and how real our struggle is and how much we need to really stand together, not as Democrats or as liberals, but as Americans who believe in individual rights and who believe in human rights. All of us should get behind that. Anyone who was stupid enough to vote for Trump 3 times or whatever, who voted for Trump this time, you should have known this would happen because this is something they openly talked about for years leading up to the election. Trump talked about terminating the Constitution. He talked about what he wanted to do with immigrants. He talked about all this shit. This has all been telegraphed and you should have known better. But now is the time, right? Now is the time where you need to like man the fuck up and say, I made a horrible decision. I'm sorry for my role in this happening. And I'm going to do what I can to fight against it. And we really need to come together as a country, as a world. We need to stand with our allies. We need to stand with Canada, with the EU. We need to stand up against the fascist takeover of our government and this rogue state that America has turned into, the sort of place that disappears people to third world prison camps. We need to stand against that. All of you, everyone who made that mistake, anyone who's still in the cult, anyone who is turning the blind eye to this, who's pretending like this isn't happening, history is going to remember you. We're going to remember you, who you are and what you stood for in this moment. And you're going to lose. The fascists always lose eventually.
Constitutional rights to due process. And it's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America.
Yeah, fuck yeah, right? Because this isn't about just one illegal immigrant. This is about every immigrant, but it's about U.S. citizens too, right? Trump, fascist prick that he is, was already floating the idea of taking our worst quote-unquote prisoners and sending them to the death camp also, right? To the concentration camp also. He's talked about how
criminals. Yeah,
homegrown criminals too. And of course, to Trump, the worst of the worst, that doesn't mean violent murderers, that doesn't mean rapists. He is that means people who disagree with Trump, who speak out against Trump, right? That's who the worst of the worst are. That's who the quote-unquote terrorists are going to be designated. So pay attention to that. Everyone who voted for him, you have that on your hands too.
If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America. Yes. The Fourth Circuit put it very clearly in its strong opinion yesterday, and I quote.
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw that, but there was that Fourth Circuit rebuke of Trump and basically them saying like they're absolutely going to hold them in contempt. The officials in his administration who are not complying with the orders to facilitate the return of Abrego. No, you know what? I'm wrong, actually. Sorry, guys. That was a separate thing. So there's actually two. So there's three things now. There's that, what I just said, which happened, I think, the day before yesterday, or maybe earlier in the day yesterday. There's been so much on this. What he's talking about I believe, is they're being held in contempt for refusing to turn the planes around, for ignoring the planes for continuing to send them after the court already ruled. Remember, that was the big controversy before we learned about Kilmar. The judge had said, turn these planes around, and they said they're already in the air and you don't have jurisdiction in international air or whatever. That's what they're being held in contempt for. And then today, like I was saying just before we started recording this, there was another decision that Trump is barred from using the Aliens Act or whatever.
It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter. But in this case, it is not hard at all. The government, in this case the Trump administration, is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundational of our constitutional order.
Not only that, but without even having formal charges or evidence or anything. It's completely ridiculous.
Further, it claims, in essence, that because it has rid itself of custody, that there is nothing that can be done. And that's why the Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia. Now, the Trump administration wants to flat out lie about what this case is about.
Yeah, during the press conference with President Bukele from El Salvador, I believe it was Stephen Miller who lied and said the court ruled 9-0 in their favor. We're just seeing... Well, yeah, go ahead.
Stephen Miller is a piece of shit and an evil person. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be
absolutely.
surprised.
Hey, America. Hey, people listening. What happened to fascists? Historically, what happens to fascists when they're thrown out of power? Think about that.
Oh.
Hey, we can't say that, and I'm going to have to edit that, but yeah, we put them in the fucking, throw them, forget about them, is what should happen to them. Is what should happen to them.
Schmadoff Schmittler did.
I'm going to be so disappointed if Trump is the one who... I really am. Absolutely. Tear down these fascists. Person listening. That's what I'm saying. I'm kidding. That's a joke, everyone. Yeah, holy shit. We're in unprecedented times.
They want to change the subject. They want to make it about something else. And they are flouting
It's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. This is the fucking United States.
from the Federal District Court, the Fourth Circuit Court, and the Supreme Court to facilitate his return. My principal mission was to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, getting a meeting with Kilmar was not easy. On Wednesday, I met with the Vice President of El Salvador and asked if I could meet with him. The answer was no. No to his wife, no to his mother, no to...
Why would an administration, why would a government disappear someone if they were a criminal? Why would they try to do it secretly without telling anyone?
Because they don't want to get stopped by the Congress. I don't know.
Because they're doing something they know is illegal.
So the following day, which was yesterday, I decided to give it another try by driving to CECOT. About 3 kilometers outside of CECOT, we were pulled over by soldiers and told that we were not allowed to proceed any farther. When I asked why, I was told that they had orders not to allow us to go any further.
You know, there's hope that the military will not follow Trump if it comes down to that, right? Like so for example, not just the military, but even like the Justice Department, if the courts order the, members of the Trump administration in contempt and they send court marshals to arrest them, well, the court marshals are part of the Justice Department, right? So what happens if the court orders a court marshal to arrest someone and Trump orders them not to arrest them? Who are they going to side with?
It's like the riddle from Game of Thrones.
If Trump deploys the National Guard, who are under the command of state governors, to, go to war against that state, or to police the streets of that state, to do a military crackdown of that state, is the National Guard going to go with Trump, or are they going to go with the state governor? Trump fired the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He replaced him with a sycophant. It's like, historically, the military is the sword of fascism. They've always been the sword of the fascists. Fascists rely eventually on the military, right? They seize power through other means. First, it's usually always capital. It's big business that bankrolls the fascists, and that's what we saw here with Elon Musk. That's what we saw in Italy when Mussolini, the original fascist, rose to power in the north of Italy. He was bankrolled by business interests at the time. That's how it starts. Through populism too. They rely on big money and they rely on the ignorant populations of countries to rise to power. And then when they do have that power and they have to start cracking down on the population, that's when they rely on military support. That's why fascist governments are always so militarized. That's always a big component of that. And we already know that America is such a huge military state. Defense spending is like one of the largest things that our budget goes towards. Who knows what's going to happen in that case? I like to think that there are men of honor who will put their duty to the Constitution and to their countrymen, above their duty of obedience and just following the orders of whoever's in charge. I really hope that, but historically that hasn't been the case. And just this little anecdote here of the troops following orders to keep Senator Van Hollen out of CECOT, that just reminded me, I should probably say that at some point.
And so much later in the afternoon, I was actually getting ready to catch a plane out of San Salvador back here later yesterday evening. And all of a sudden, I got word that I would be allowed to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And they brought him to the hotel.
What if this is like a fake Kilmar? That's my conspiracy brain. This is a fake Kilmar. I don't know.
Where I was staying. And after that meeting, as I said, I called his wife, Jennifer, to report on some of the news of that meeting. And now I'm going to report to all of you.
This is what we've been waiting for.
He spoke several times about your 5-year-old son who has autism. 5-year-old son who was in the car in Maryland when Kilmar was pulled over by U.S. government agents and handcuffed. His 5-year-old son was in the car.
Bro, turn the fucking... close the fucking airport for a second. Come on.
He said he was later taken with some others from Baltimore to a detention center in Texas. And some point thereafter, I don't know whether it was period of hours or days. He was handcuffed, shackled, and put on a plane along with some others. They landed in El Salvador, and he was taken to CECOT.
This is interesting to me because now we're going to get like the eyewitness of what it's like, or at least what Kilmar told him it was like, you know? And I think, you know, if I were Kilmar, I'd be thinking in my head, like, I've got to go back to this prison in an hour. You know, I got to be careful with what I say here because they can do whatever they want to me with no consequences when I get back, right?
He told me, and this was yesterday, that 8 days ago, so I guess 9 days ago from today, he was moved to another detention center.
Okay, so they moved him out of CECOT to another detention center.
But he said despite the better conditions, he still has no access to any news from the outside world and no ability to communicate with anybody in the outside world. I want to say something about the Trump administration's efforts to change the conversation about what this case is about. This case is about upholding constitutional rights for Abrego Garcia and for every American.
Right. You know, just to reiterate for the 1,000th time, you were abducted and sent to El Salvador. I was abducted. My co-host here was abducted. We were all abducted and sent to El Salvador. An attack on one of us in this way is an attack on every single one of us. It's an assault on your rights.
The Trump administration wants to say that those who are fighting to stand up for our Constitution don't want to fight gang violence. That is an outright...
Trump is a gangster. This is gang violence. Kilmar is a victim of gang violence.
You know who else is a gangster? The Huts.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Lie. That is a big, big lie. I, for one, have been fighting against transnational gang violence, especially MS-13.
I've been fighting MS-13 since before you even knew what MS-13 was, motherfucker.
Anti-gang task force, a regional anti-gang task force in the Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia area. I did it in a bipartisan way with then Congressman Frank Wolf and Tom Davis. And we have made substantial...
Okay, whatever. We're done with this. Basically, yeah, those are the conditions that he's just talking about his record fighting international crime. Do you want to watch this for 30 minutes? Yeah, I think we're done. Okay, so we'll get back to DFF. I want to make a distinction between, like, I understand that TJ and Paul are not as bad as Donald Trump, and I just got all hate bonered up listening to how evil Trump is and shit and ranting about Trump. I just want to make it clear, like I don't have like a deep burning hatred of them, but I think that they are useful idiots for fascism. I think that they do unintentionally. They are unintentional allies, right? Useful idiots for Donald Trump and his regime. You know, that was a big inspiration for the channel in the first place. Why it seemed important to me to even start doing this was because of that argument I had against no confidence that I'd had really since I started watching them again last year, which was just how this just does nothing but help Trump. Like, so many people think like this, and this is why Trump is president, because of the leftists who abstained, right? That was the argument that I wanted to prosecute with the channel, really. And so I want to make a couple things clear. And first of them is that, no, Paul is not Hitler. He's not as bad as Trump. I don't hate him, right? And I don't think he needs to end up in the pit with the rest of the fascists. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to understand that, like, this anger and these arguments, really, like, the actual point of what I'm saying, that comes from a very real place. And if there weren't so many Pauls in the country, then Kilmar wouldn't be in CECOT right now. He wouldn't have been black bagged and disappeared and sent to a fascist concentration camp. That wouldn't have happened if enough people had the wisdom that Paul didn't have. And so there is very genuine criticism here of their show and of what they do. And I do want to have a fun with it, but there is that criticism that is the main point of this that should be made and just restated here, because I feel like that we've gone a lot of places with the channel, and that is like the main point of the argument I'm trying to prosecute.
Deportees to it.
Yeah, I've seen some of them.
Nice. Yeah.
Hold on.
You ain't seen it, dude? Oh,
Dude,
I've seen some other El Salvador
It's-
prison shit.
It's
before,
wild, dude.
so.
There's some wild shit down there, dude.
Well, I mean, there's one picture in particular that has been making the rounds, and I kind of looked into this a little bit. Oh, get.
Oh God, that's what's in the prison. Holy shit, it's worse than I thought.
God, I mean, I knew it was bad down there, but fuck.
Oh, it's kind of it's a
Yeah.
it's a Google image.
Yeah, so this is the picture that we were talking about at the start of this before we went off on the tangent. I don't know, just I feel like it doesn't look like there's things about it that seem off to me, right? Like I'm trying to look at the way this shadow happens over here. Let me see. Here, I'll just pull up.
Well, if it is real, you're showing like gore on YouTube.
I don't care. I mean, this has already been on YouTube. I've seen this. Like if we actually like take a minute and look at this. I don't know, like look at the way the shadow happens here. Okay? So you have the shadow here, and then you have this weird thing right here where it like obstructs the shadow, and it's like one of these bodies right here. And if this shadow shouldn't be broken, right? If these bodies are happening in the shadow should be over them also. Is that not the way that shadows work? Like I'm trying to find I don't know, I feel like for me that it just looks like something's amiss here, right? Do you not get that? Am I wrong about this, or what do you think? I don't know. I could be wrong about that. I really hope this isn't real, by the way. If this is real, this is terrible. This is very upsetting, but I hope it's not true. Anyways, back to the video.
And okay, so I went looking into this a little bit, because if you look in can you see my mouse here?
Yeah.
If you look in this general region, right, there's a
Death camp, blood everywhere, blood
I find that to be
everywhere, death camp.
I find it to be offensive, TJ, because they clearly kill people off-site. They march them out to the jungle and kill them.
I
feel like they would just hose that on off, you know? I don't know.
you know what I mean? Like I thought.
Yeah, let Paul say his thing. I want to see if he makes the same criticism that I did. I'm going to be pretty upset if he does, because then I'm going to have to like cut all this out.
Maybe this is a big ass place, right?
Yeah.
It houses 40,000.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, maybe this is like they butcher or like they get deliveries of animal parts from the butchery and they make things with it, and this is where it gets delivered at, right?
Yeah.
No, they don't serve any meat in this prison. That's one of the punishments is like they never get to eat meat again.
Yeah, you gotta be a vegetarian.
There's no meat in the yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's not. It's not. So he just believes this is real without any skepticism of the prison here.
So I just Google Earth CECOT, and yeah, this is a building on the premises.
No, I know this is real. Like I know the buildings are that's what I'm saying though. Like look at how distinct you can see like the lines of the building here on the roof and everything. And then versus like I don't know, I feel like this just looks fake to me. I could be wrong. This could be real. Like I know it's from a real map of CECOT, but you know.
Yeah,
The shadows look the
vegetarian
same on
menu.
Google Earth.
What is this right here where the cursor is? Is there anything here?
No, it's too blurry, but I'm glad Paul approves of the veganism at a fucking death camp.
His wife doesn't approve.
Of course not.
Dude, that's my favorite thing. This is some intel that you guys don't have, but there was a Reddit post in the kitty nipples thing where like after his conversation with Vegan Gains, Paul told his wife to go buy him like vegan cheese and shit, and she went to Reddit to ask what the worst vegan cheese was that she could buy for him.
Oh, this screenshot is literally ripped from Google Maps.
And stuff that's probably not all that nice to eat. But there's no meat. So, you know, once again, it begs the question, like, what is this a pile of? What is the red liquid leaking out of it in a very liquidy pattern towards, like drains and stuff?
That is probably some construction, Paul. Or probably construction
So, I mean, what if
Where's the
these
drains?
right here, maybe?
and some stuff. So maybe some rust or something? Some red clay or something?
And so you might ask yourself, like, well, this is a prison, and in El Salvador, they don't, like, this is the forever prison. The whole idea of it is, like, you never get out.
Yes.
Like, they said from the very jump, like, whatever his name is, Lopez Abrador, whatever that guy's name is. I can't remember what his fucking name is.
Wow.
Bukele, yeah. He said that, like,
Wait, was he trying to say Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but
Yes.
but he was the president of El Salvador?
Scotty tried to correct him with the president of El Salvador's name, but Paul, like,
Maybe what's Bukele's first name?
Bukele.
First name?
I don't know. Victor?
Yeah, he's not even close. He's not even close.
Naib? Armando Bukele.
What did he say? So he was thinking Kilmar was the president of El Salvador.
He's thinking Los Lobos.
Gustavo Fring is the president of El Salvador.
Wow. And so you might ask yourself, like, well, this is a prison, and in El Salvador, they don't, like, this is the forever prison. The whole idea of it is, like, you never get out.
Yes.
Like, they said from the very jump, like, whatever his name is, Lopez Abrador, whatever that guy's name is. I can't remember what
Wow.
Who's Lopez Abrador?
It's a name that somebody who doesn't give a fuck about what he's covering, like, is trying to talk about.
Carlos Dumbledore, whatever the fuck. Like,
Carlos Santana.
What is fucking
Bukele?
Bukele, yeah. He said
no, Bukele's the president, right? You were trying to say Kilmar Abrego, and what the fuck?
that, like,
Oh,
it's a life sentence. Everybody
I
that's in
feel
this
better
prison
now.
is serving a life sentence. Like, there's no plans to ever release any. So,
Well, it'd be a lot cheaper if we was to,
you know what
I
I
don't
mean?
know. Maybe we, instead of housing these guys forever, maybe when you're
Jails get a little crowded. Let's do a little crowd
take
control.
them out back, see if we can get ourselves a little.
You know what I mean.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean. So I just saw that.
We're joking about a
that is
death
like
camp.
that person's super fucking lazy that they would literally just do it out in the open where you could just see satellite images of it.
Yeah, who knows what? Like, I don't know, guys. I'm skeptical of the picture, but hey, if the picture's true, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I would say, oh, that makes sense. Of course it's true. Of course that's what's going on. Everything points in that direction anyways that we know. So it wouldn't alarm me if the picture was true. If the picture was fake, it wouldn't alarm me, and it also wouldn't mean that they aren't killing people.
No,
I mean, possible, of course.
take a truckload of mountain of woods or something.
They figure they always do
Go
that.
find yourself a nice ravine,
Or just
something.
like put a big fucking tarp over this area where you're processing the bodies. Or
Get like a
something.
big tent.
Yeah.
I don't know, something. Figure it out.
But
Hey, look, guys, your fascist stuff. I mean, it's kind of lazy. Here's gonna be better fascist.
Well, look, I mean, if you're gonna mass exterminate all your prisoners, I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't live in El Salvador. That's not my fucking responsibility.
I mean, you
to
might
deal
be
with.
set there soon, TJ.
yeah,
If
that's
I-
my-
I just hate. I hope he's joking and whatever.
We're joking about a death camp.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm
This
not
is
gonna.
awful.
The real fucking war crime is that, like, how fucking boring and bland this is, honestly.
Wow. Well,
Like
not even
TJ's joking about a death camp, and I'm stoned and I'm angry, and I feel nothing. I'm like totally tranquil. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
hurry up and tell your joke so Paul can get on to the next part.
Maybe that's really what the meat comes from.
Mark Zuckerberg's
Okay, so I hope that's it. Let's see.
Mark Zuckerberg eyed Instagram spin-off amid antitrust scrutiny, document shows. Whoa, that's wild. That's crazy.
I can't believe
that's
that.
insane. I can't.
All right, cool. So we're done with that. That was easy. We made it through.
names for a certain different types of farts too. There's like the puppy dog.
I forgot. I was trying to find this clip today, or find the actual timestamp where it starts, and there's like minutes, like actual minutes of like farts, fart talk,
Yep.
fart jokes. I don't know, guys. Maybe it's not for me. This humor is not for me. I don't know. I feel like this wouldn't have happened in Drunken Peasants. Like, we wouldn't have 3 minutes of farts, right?
No, Ben would move the show along.
Yeah.
The puppy dog fart is the fart where you fart it out and you're trying to leave it behind, but it follows you into the next room. That's the puppy dog fart. The bull ringer.
He just listen. There's no like humor or inflection or anything in his voice. He's just matter of factly like. Anyways,
Yeah, he
that's
talks
the
about
puppy
like
dog
he's got
fart.
nicknames for all different parts.
And then TJ's like, yes, what?
Waiting for Scotty to show up because Scotty's
That's one
not
of my
here.
favorite ones. Because that's like when you've got a perfect seal with your butt.
Oh, Scotty needs to be here for the Trump segment.
He is the third peasant.
Yeah.
He is the F in DFF.
He is the F in DFF. Well, does he really need to be here? Like, I don't know.
Those are the ones that really fucking stink up the place.
Yeah, I think
Ugh.
it's because like the urgent farts are more diluted with other gaseous kind of emissions and stuff. You know what I mean? And so because there's a big that needs to come out, but when you just got like a little bubble of pure methane in there, that's a room clearing fart right there, man.
Yeah, I haven't watched a live show in a while. I was curious if you guys still think Trump is a typical Republican. I ask respectfully, of course. Well, what is a typical Republican to you? Because when all I can tell you is this: when Georgia jumped,
So, oh my God. Bro, that sucked out my fucking soul. Like, that was a desert. That 30 seconds that we watched or whatever was like a desert of time. I forgot my name. I forgot what we were talking about. I was just like waiting for it to end.
So dramatic.
Oh my, well, I'm really stoned. I think, it just kind of It was not a good experience. This is not good. I can't imagine doing this for 4 hours. Fuck. So, hey, I haven't watched a chatter say 10. I haven't watched a live show in a while, but I was curious if you guys still think Trump is a typical Republican. I ask respectfully, of course, please don't ban me for insinuating you guys are being wrong about your stupid point that doesn't even, why even defend this anymore? Why even, Paul, you just pulled up the super real death camp photo, right? You know, I thought this was meat, but actually they don't serve meat. Like, he's not a typical Republican. Why even go off on this tangent? Why not ignore it? You've seen this.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen this. So, am I right about what's about to happen here?
They walk back in real time what they actually meant.
Good.
W. Bush was president. I heard for 8 years how he was just like this beyond the pale figure.
He was. George W. Bush was also uniquely evil. And so was Reagan, right? But Trump is among them even more unique. So to say like, hey, Reagan is uniquely evil in the way that he like rewrote the tax code for the billionaire class, right? In the way that he really is the one who handed control to the oligarchy. That makes him uniquely evil in a way that the presidents before him weren't evil. In the way that Bush, you know, with the Patriot Act and with the war on terror and with his his irresponsible handling of the economy and foreign policy, he was uniquely evil, right? He was uniquely evil to Reagan. He was much worse. And then Trump comes along and tries to overthrow the Constitution, sends people to concentration camps, violates the Constitution on a daily basis, allows Doge to make cuts, threatens war with Canada, threatens to ethnically cleanse and annex Gaza. Like, he's uniquely evil. Like, there's so many things about Trump that, you know, this week we're talking about tariffs in El Salvador, but remember like the 30 evil, like uniquely evil things he did before that over the last less than 3 months that he's been the president again. He's uniquely bad. He's much worse than Bush.
He's changed what the presidency is about. He's expanding presidential powers well beyond what they're supposed to be. Like, I'm hearing I heard the same shit about him.
No regard for the processes.
So what? Yeah, he was uniquely evil, and now Trump has blown his record out of the fucking water, right? I don't understand why it's so hard for you to grasp that.
Yeah, so I mean, like, if we're gonna set the bar at that, if we're gonna compare him to the last Republican president, then yeah, I would say he's pretty typical. And I mean, even the stuff about activist judges. People act like this activist judge phrase just emerged during the Trump administration. Fucking George W. Bush used to use the term activist judges.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't disregard their orders, right? He didn't.
No.
Yeah, that's the difference. He didn't go to war with the court. He didn't publicly say this judge should be disbarred or whatever because they ruled against me, right? He didn't threaten judges.
Judges all the fucking time.
Yeah, legislating from the court bench or whatever the fuck they would call it. Yep.
Patriot Act,
Yep. Fucking idiot.
Bending the writ of habeas corpus. I mean, so much fascistic.
Well, okay, but the Patriot Act was Congress, right? That was something that happened under Bush, but that Congress was complicit in. And it was uniquely evil for the time. That was a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But look at the way that Trump has violated the First Amendment. There's other things Trump has done that are uniquely evil, right? So he has all the shit of Bush, but then more shit on top of that.
Shit happened under George W. Bush.
I love this. Like, this is how broken their logic is, right? The proposition is Trump is uniquely evil. He's saying, well, no, Bush was uniquely evil, so Trump was the same as Bush. That's his argument. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't track. That's not a good sound reasoning. The argument you're trying to discredit or whatever is that Trump is uniquely evil. You say Trump is not uniquely evil because Bush was uniquely evil, which doesn't make any sense. And therefore, they're the same.
They're comparing the two Republican presidents in their lifetimes because they're both evil presidents. Therefore, this is going to be the same bog standard Republicanism. You'll see. You'll see the mental gymnastics they go to like not apologize.
But I just want everyone to recognize, like, arguing that someone isn't uniquely evil because another person was also uniquely evil is not an argument. That's not a refutation of that.
No.
I don't think...
I think they're both horrible. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, saying he's the typical Republican should not be you seeing me as, like, letting him off the hook. It should be an indictment of what a Republican is in this fucking country.
Yeah, I really do think...
Okay, but if you recall, what you've been saying, though, is that he's a typical Republican, same old, business as usual, which isn't the case. Things are much worse, right? Because as you've also gone on to acknowledge after saying that for months, Trump is uniquely evil and that Trump represents a fire that's going to burn down the system, right? And that he abuses power in obscene ways. Or really, I guess what you actually said is he abuses power the way that we on the left should abuse power. But but you went on to acknowledge that actually he is uniquely evil, even though you don't say that because you're not smart enough to realize that's what you were acknowledging or the argument you were making. But being a fire that's going to destroy the system that was in place before it is uniquely evil. That is an example of uniquely evil. Idiot.
I think that language from us, coming from a place of having lived as an adult through the entirety of George W. Bush's presidency,
right? Or something. You weren't.
I didn't live as an adult through George W. Bush's presidency. I didn't come to adulthood until Obama, I guess. But I mean, I became politically aware during that. 9/11 happened when I was when I was very young. I have vivid memories of being like 8 or 9 or whatever, and remembering where I was on 9/11 and all that shit. The only reason I'm thinking about that is because I just watched them talk about where they were on 9/11 for 2 hours for another video we're doing. But I mean, I was politically aware. I was, I had exposure, I'll say, to hyper ultra conservative views as like a 11, 12-year-old. I was aware of who Larry Elder was. Like I was politically aware during the Bush years. And I came to understand Bush is this supremely evil being at a very young age.
We're an adult.
Sure, but I mean, whatever. The same perspective. We're not that fucking far apart.
Yeah,
you came through to adulthood during George W. Bush's presidency.
I was definitely conscious enough to be political in nature by the time.
And I think that when we said, hey, he's going to be a standard Republican, we're saying it with that kind of perspective in mind, right?
Yeah.
Now, nothing that I don't think that he's
right, but that perspective is wrong though, right? Saying it from like, hey, I remember how bad Bush was, so Trump is just like Bush. Right. And first of all, you were saying that to downplay how uniquely bad Trump is. Right. It's not like you were saying, oh, my fucking God, you guys, Trump is just like Bush. It's a crisis. That's not what you were saying. You are fucking walking it back because you explicitly said the people saying that Trump is going to destroy everything and that he's a big problem are chicken littles with their heads cut off. And when it turns out Trump doesn't destroy everything, they're going to say it's because he was a pussy. So, yeah, actually, you were. Oh, my God.
Yep. Shit.
Yeah, you were using that. You were saying he's just a typical Republican as a way to say he wasn't that bad. That was the argument you were making. Now you dishonest, smarmy douchebag. You're trying to walk that back and say, you guys, actually, by saying he was just like Bush and a typical Republican, we were being alarmist. We were saying, oh my God, that's terrible because we lived through the Bush years and we do know how supremely evil it can get. Fuck you guys, hypocrites, liars, grifters, charlatans.
The audience pushed back too much. Now they got to walk it back.
Yeah. Disgraceful.
Standard Republican means that we had to guess how shitty he was going to be or how he was going to misuse. Like there was no call involved in that, right?
Trump is worse. I mean, when he takes us into, which he might, by the way. I'm not saying he wouldn't. When he takes us into a forever war, then I'll agree that he's at least on par. But
wow.
That's the standard. That's what it takes. Hold on. That's the red line. So we're not even going to know if Trump was wait, no. But that's something Bush did. So that wouldn't make him worse than Bush. That would make him on par with Bush, at least in that regard. Right. But first of all, the Afghanistan war was like over 20 years. I think it ended in 2022. Right. So yeah, it was about 20 years from late 2001 or early 2002 into 2022. That was, so we won't even know if Trump is bad until he starts the war with Iran, and we're there in 2045.
To me, the stuff that
right. That's such a ridiculous standard, right? You can do other things that are more evil, right? Like, what if Trump starts like throwing people into death camps and opens up like fucking Auschwitz 2 in Salt Lake City or something? Like, that's obviously worse than Bush, right? Even if he doesn't get us into a forever war, it's possible for Trump to do things that make him worse than Bush that aren't the same, right?
Yeah, but to TJ, he'll only accept it when a forever war happens.
Ridiculous. What about the fact that Trump does way more drone strikes than Bush or Obama?
No. Not a forever
Doesn't
war.
that make him worse? Isn't he worse on war because the way that he wages war, just for percentage-wise, leads to more civilian deaths?
No new wars.
Yeah. Idiots.
that George W. Bush did in Afghanistan and in Iraq pushes him over the edge.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that gives him the edge over Trump from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Because everything else that Trump's doing, you could say that George W. Bush did some form of it or pushed the civil rights of his day. Because the stuff George W. Bush did in the wake of 9/11 to destroy civil liberties in this country is fucking insane.
Yeah, but that was also Congress, though, too.
Obama campaigned on
and the courts, too.
Reversing
and rescinding it and ended up expanding it.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty hideous.
It's just one of those things that I think that
Throwing around Trump. Well, that's why I said I don't put it past him. Like if he
Wait, so is Obama worse than Bush then by that logic? They're talking about the Patriot Act, right? And search and seizure. And they're saying that because surveillance expanded under Obama, he didn't reverse the Bush era laws, the Patriot Act, but rather he expanded the surveillance state. That makes him worse than Bush in that regard, right? So if Bush is uniquely evil, but Obama is worse in that regard, wouldn't that make... Or no, I guess Obama didn't start a forever war, right? So maybe not.
He takes us in a war with Iran, I'll admit he's just as bad.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, so it doesn't have to be a forever war. He just has to take us into war with Iran.
I like how he goes from forever war to well, if he invades Iran, then
Iran is way bigger than Iraq too. Iran is a huge country. That would be a catastrophic war. There would be so much death and so much money too lost. Just more waste as America withers and Americans live worse and worse qualities of life. It would be much worse than Iraq and Afghanistan. But I already think he's worse than Bush because while maybe in that one specific foreign policy way he isn't as bad, he's done other terrible foreign policy things. I would say that Bush didn't isolate us from all of our allies, right? Bush didn't threaten Canada. Bush didn't threaten to annex Greenland. That makes Trump worse than Bush, in my opinion. The way that he's isolated us from our allies. I don't think Bush would have excused Putin's war crimes in Ukraine the way that Trump did when he voted. He had us vote on the same side as Russia to acknowledge that they were not responsible for starting the war. I mean, he does things that are uniquely evil. Annexing Gaza, making ethnically cleansing Gaza, right? We're going to seize Gaza and those people can't go back and we're going to develop it. That's ethnic cleansing by definition. You're taking the people who live there and you're kicking them out of their land and sending them somewhere else. That's ethnic cleansing by definition. And El Salvador, even threatening to send U.S. citizens to foreign concentration camps. That makes him worse than Bush. Bush didn't wage a war against universities. He didn't threaten to withhold funding to universities for using their First Amendment rights. And going back to his first term, he never tried to overthrow the government. He never tried to lead an insurrection. Bush never did that. That's something that makes Trump uniquely evil. Bush never called in the National Guard to fire upon protesters and shoot them in the leg like Trump tried to do in his first term. So, go fuck yourself. This is so short-sighted. This is so tunnel-visioned.
I'm fine with admitting that. And, given how...
I don't know why the most important...
And again, that's not to excuse Bush. Bush was terrible. He was a war criminal. This rehabilitation of George W. Bush that's gone on is disgusting. But American presidents are always war criminals. We have a long legacy of having war criminals lead our nation. I think that if a Democrat were in office, they also would have gotten us into the forever war. Or if it had been another Republican, I don't think that's unique. But I don't think another Republican or a Democrat would have tried to overthrow the government.
Important thing here is the ranking. We can all agree that they both...
Well, because it's not about... It's about us being wrong somehow.
No, it's not. Neither of those things are true, right? It's not about the ranking. It's about recognizing the severity of the moment we're in and treating it with the urgency that it requires. So that's point one. It's not about the ranking. It could be the case that Bush was worse than Trump. I don't care. It's irrelevant. That's not the point.
Bush is no longer president.
The reason, first of all, Bush is there. The criticism is that they're downplaying Trump by saying he's just a standard Republican. And their argument was Bush. Nobody else is really comparing him to Bush other in the general sense of them saying he's like a standard Republican, right?
But that's why they say.
So the rankings don't matter to us. What matters to us is the unique, desperate, dangerous moment that we're in. Now, when it comes to you guys being wrong, you're wrong about so many things. You're wrong about everything as banal to people in Norway not having Down syndrome to things as severe as Trump isn't going to do everything he said he was going to do and has now done, right? What we're criticizing you for, the reason you're wrong is because you downplay how dangerous Trump is. During your Project 2025 episode, you spent 2.5 hours or whatever doing stupid voices instead of engaging with what actually was going to happen. You spent time talking about how like Leo Strauss had some good ideas and the Heritage Foundation is just more of the same, instead of sounding the alarm about the Heritage Foundation conspiracy that's been going on for 50 years and that has been extremely effective. That's why we're criticizing you. It's important that everyone knows you're wrong. It's important that everyone knows how stupid you are and how ignorant you are and how they shouldn't listen to your advice. That's important because I want the people who watch you and who think you're smart and who think that you have good things to say to understand you don't. And the next time there's an election when it's voting before someone who probably isn't the best person possible that we want to run, or Hitler, I want them to understand that they're actually, it does make sense to do the lesser evil vote. That's really the point of all this. That's practically, in practice, how your stupidity affects me personally in my personal life. Trump being my president is not entirely Paul's fault, right? But it is in some part the fault of people who felt like Kamala wasn't a lesser enough evil to warrant the vote. And Paul isn't some major celebrity, but he does have thousands of followers who at least care enough about what he says to give him $7 a month, right? So I want those people to understand this person is a charlatan, right? They're deceiving you in some way, even if it's an accidental deception caused by their own stupidity. They're not engaging with reality in an appropriate way. They're not informing you well. Maybe you find them super entertaining still, I don't know, or have just some emotional, nostalgic attachment to them. But what this is Paul is wrong, and that's important for all those reasons, right? And I want everyone to understand that and to recognize the pattern of Paul being wrong. And so when we look at the eugenics thing, when we look at Paul's just misinformation informing his opinions on eugenics or his Anne Frank denial or whatever, when we can look at those individual things to understand like how Paul's conspiracy brain makes him a dangerous idiot. So that's all part of the larger thing. It's like Paul is wrong. This is the method by which Paul is wrong, right? We're prosecuting the case against people thinking that you're any sort of fount of wisdom. But it's also good because we're introducing these types of arguments because Paul is not unique, right? He is not uniquely evil. There are tons of people who are like Paul, who think like Paul. So I want them all to recognize this broken pattern in their thought process and in their way of looking at the world. But also I want you to go forward and use these arguments, this logic, look at these arguments this way, and be able to engage with people in your actual lives in this way, or at least be able to make the case to whoever, needs to hear it, or even for yourself, for you to evaluate people in your life, the arguments they're making, take good advice, listen to sound judgment and people who are rational and reasonable. Don't listen to conspiracy-brained retards who care more about being right than what's true.
Where we're wrong in some technicality somewhere.
It's a little release valve on us being correct about the entirety of the last political season. You know what I mean? It makes us wrong about something.
Yeah, and you're not pretending like knowing that Trump was going to win makes you like some genius political mind is pathetic. Pretending like you were the only one who knew Joe Biden was a narcissist is pathetic. That's you trying your hardest to milk victory from just everyone finding out how stupid you are and unsubscribing from you. That's you trying to cope with your diminishing fan base. That's what that is.
Oof.
I mean, let's be real, right? That like, you're not right. Like the small things you're right about are the most obvious things in the world. There's no profound insight you've had that everyone else was like, no, there's no way, Paul, you're wrong about that. And you just turned out to be fucking 100% on point, defying all odds of reason. Guessing right in a 50-50 gamble like does not make you a genius.
I still think that fucking around with, look, dude, during Trump's first presidency, one of the big things that the other Republicans, remember when he was running in 2016, one of the big things that the other Republicans were running on all the way back then was eliminating a bunch of federal agencies and shit. Right. We're going to get rid of.
Yeah, but they didn't do it, and Trump did it. And the way that Trump did it was illegal, right? I guess I should explain this for people listening. So for those who don't know, there are two types of bureaucrats who work in these federal agencies. There's career appointees and political appointees, and career appointees are supposed to be nonpartisan, and they're there beyond, from administration to administration. They're the serious people who are really invested in what the bureaucracy or whatever agency, what they're doing. And then you have political appointees who are appointed by the president or whoever, and that's like the different heads of the departments that the president can appoint. There's a clear distinction between these two types of personnel, and they do different things. So what Trump has done is he's fired all the career appointees, which he doesn't have the power to fire, and he's replaced them with political appointees. That's a violation of the Constitution, but that also is indicative of the fascist takeover that's happening. That's showing the way that this person is, this, autocrat, this wannabe dictator, is breaking the law to establish yes men in positions of power that normally they wouldn't be in. He's getting rid of checks and balances on himself. That's something that Bush didn't do. So yeah, every Republican has wanted to cut these agencies, but the way that Trump did it is uniquely evil and uniquely fascist.
Rid of the FDA. We're going to get rid of the fucking Department of Education. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of that. So
right, but again, Trump actually did it. And the way that he did it was grossly illegal and not something that any other president has done.
When TJ and I said standard Republicanism, I think...
So what he's doing is he just made an argument for how Trump isn't like a standard Republican, because he's saying all Republicans want this, right? But this person is unique in that he actually did it. And also the way that he did it is uniquely horrible. So Paul just really made an argument for the opposite of the position he thinks he made the argument for. And he's too dumb to realize that. And I want all of his viewers to be conscious of that, please. Thank you.
I think that's what we meant.
Yeah. I think that we just have a different idea about what that means. I think you guys are romanticizing Republicans of the past or something.
No, we're not.
Well, I feel like that the fucking social media environment we exist in and shit makes everything feel like it is immediately impactful.
It is immediately impactful. The deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, again, immediately impacts you. It's critically important that you pay attention to that. Lopez Rodrigo or whatever Paul pretended his name was.
Discourages you.
You don't even know the dude's name, piece of shit. This is so important. This is so critically important, and you just don't give a fuck.
To look into it any further, because every day there's some new thing you need to react negatively to, right?
Yeah, you have to be aware of what's going on. This is so over. That's another way he's not like a standard Republican, is the speed at which he's breaking laws, right? The crime spree. We'll wait for the sirens to pass. The crime spree. Yeah, the crime. They're coming to get me for my spicy comments that I made a couple hours ago. The crime spree is happening much faster. It's much more elevated. It's much more effective. So yeah, this is ways that Trump is uniquely bad.
Right. There's some new thing you need to excoriate, some new thing you need to scream about.
It's always falling. Right.
Where's the time to go?
There we go. Chicken Little again. The sky is always falling. But I thought that the sky was falling under Bush, right? I thought that Bush was fucking terrible. And you just said a minute ago that Trump is a typical Republican. That doesn't mean that Trump is nothing to worry about. That means, oh my God, the sky is falling just like it was when Bush was president. But now you're back again. Whoa, you've done another fucking thought loop again. You're back to another somersault there. Now you're back to Trump isn't uniquely evil. The sky isn't falling. But I thought that he wasn't unique, and that's why he's so terrible. But he's not unique again, and that's why the sky isn't falling. Fuck you guys. You don't even know what you think.
To go back and look at what George W. Bush did in his 8 years. You know what I mean?
Because it doesn't really, it does matter, but it doesn't really feel...
Well, it's a gotcha moment. It isn't. It does.
Right, because we can't stop that from happening, right? That's not something that's presently being done to us. The same way that right now we're watching it unfold in real times. It's important to be engaged with that, and it's important to try to think of ways that you can resist that.
It doesn't matter. It's a gotcha point, once again, against a group of dudes that refused to sip the Kool-Aid through the last electoral cycle. A bunch of people ended up looking like doofuses after election night, and we're looking for a way to salvage a little bit of their fucking self-respect out of this situation, and... Paul, oh my God. Voting for Kamala does not mean that you bet she'll win. Idiot. Voting for someone is not saying you think that they're going to win. That's not what voting means. Voting is, I want this person to win. That's what voting means. Out of these two people, I would prefer this person, right? Not out of these two people, I think this person will win. So if everyone votes for candidate A, and you're saying candidate A can't win, and then candidate B wins, that doesn't mean that they were wrong and you were right.
Yeah, but could you imagine how embarrassed he would be if he voted for Kamala and she lost? Oh boy.
Imagine how embarrassed he would be if Kamala won. Do you think we'd be getting, I was wrong, guys, Kamala won?
No, he'd be talking about. Like,
I guess I was wrong. You think we'd
the
get
drone
that?
strikes on Iran that Kamala did. We signed our name on that.
No, you know what this piece
sent
of
those
shit.
bombs.
You know what this piece of shit would be saying right now. I
hope
told
so.
you guys,
Tell me.
Kamala was just like Biden. Trump wouldn't have been worse. See, I told you
would-
guys, it doesn't
Man.
matter if Trump was president. Nothing would be different right now. That's what he'd be saying in the alternate
Actually,
timeline.
yes.
I was still
good
right, you
timeline.
guys. I was still right. Fucking
Paul's right again.
Meanwhile, he has no idea that in reality, Trump has done so much damage.
G-Man wins.
Yeah, another win for the P-man.
There's a group of people who, like the dude that came in here and donated. I don't believe for a second that dude hasn't watched for a while, and the burning question in his mind happens to be this troll question that comes up, where people are just trying desperately to get a little bit of a win in a tragic, massive loss that they're largely to blame for. So
What?
We're to blame.
Wait, what does
voted
that
for
even?
Kamala.
Yeah, how does that even track? He doesn't even know the positions he's arguing against. Okay, whatever.
Fucking racist, TJ.
You still feel like there's more to this?
No, I told you way before that there's nothing else.
they suddenly find
Oh,
a
wait,
bunch
no,
of
there
fucking
is
money,
something.
right? And they're arguing.
So I should just keep going, yeah?
How do you know if the bark on your pork butt is
Hey, it's my
That's
friend.
it. Oh,
How
shit.
do you know if the bark on your pork butt is too done? I don't care.
too done?
Yeah, she's asking how to
it's kinda
like
hard
a
say because
barbecue.
It should get pretty damn black.
Don't, Phoebe. Phoebe, my good friend.
She's grilling this pork butt now and is asking like, you can just Google this, but she's gonna pay money
Listen.
to fucking ask.
Phoebe, listen. These are not the people you should ask advice on things from. We've
People are
seen the way that they make their arguments, right? The thought patterns that go into the way they construct ideas. You shouldn't trust them to give you good information.
So
Google is free.
I don't know.
Also, you'll learn more just from.
Reading a blog.
That's what.
Also,
Watching a YouTube
we've
video.
seen their Taco Bell tier list. We know they have bad taste. Like, who cares how they
fucking
would
don't
make their
remind
barbecue, right?
Beef and cheese
Kinda
burritos are S tier.
Fucking so fucking basic. The most smooth brain Taco Bell tier list ever.
Say.
Wait until
I
ours
guess if
comes
you like
out.
hit
Should we end it with that? You want to do a Taco Bell tier list?
I
I'm
don't know,
kidding.
should
We're
we?
not going to actually do that.
it and it makes like a
In
total
a future
like
video.
I'll tell you what. I'll post my Taco Bell tier list, and if you know where to look, you'll see it. It's secret knowledge. You have to be pretty subversive person. You have to have been banned from a few places to find it. I'll say that, but it'll be out there for those who go looking.
If it's like formed like a solid layer of just like
Yeah,
then
like,
I think you've
just
probably
slice it.
gone too far with it.
No, bark.
On
They're talking
Truth Social.
She's smoking. She's smoking.
Oh, okay. I see.
Talking about like the crust that kind
Yeah,
of.
well, it's like supposed to kind of burn on the outside.
Low and
to
slow.
create like you got to go low and slow for sure.
It's got, like, yeah, it's like 225 degrees. You know, at least 12 hours.
Hey, I'm trying to
probably.
get through the show without a boner, please.
Spank your pork butt.
I don't need that right now.
Smoking some
Settle
meats. Anyone smoking meats here?
Smoking the
Paul, you want to smoke some meats?
Okay. Is there more?
No.
Okay.
I just wanted you to listen to Paul like say, people look things up are really annoying.
I couldn't even tell if he was being like serious or doing a bit.
No, I can't tell.
But,
he wasn't
hey.
doing a bit when he said that he's tired of people like asking him to be accountable for his wrongness. In that
Yeah,
one.
where he was coping about
So-
how people just want to be able to say I was wrong when I was so right. Okay, so the end of this video has come at last. Thank you guys for watching. Just remember the points that have been made. Don't trust them to think for you. They're not intellectually honest, right? They don't have the integrity to hold themselves to that. The things they think are based on misinformation. We've seen that time and time again. The conclusions they come to are conspiracy brained and made for emotional reasons. So, they have double think with what they say, where it just means whatever it needs to mean in that moment. And it doesn't matter if it contradicts itself. One example we've seen of that tonight is, again, when they say, Trump is a typical Republican, that means that Trump is really bad because typical Republicans are so fucking terrible. But also, Trump is a typical Republican, so that means the sky isn't falling, you guys. It's just business as usual. Within like minutes of each other, we saw them make both of those points, which are contradictory. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Any parting words for our good friends here?
Like and subscribe.
Thanks.
Leave a comment.
Yeah. Let me know. Actually, I get a lot of comments about how people were former fans and how they either had these realizations from watching the show or from watching like them interact with their fans or whatever. I've gotten people who like tell me that, you know, my videos have helped them realize how ridiculous Paul is or how ridiculous the show is and how they shouldn't be like just mindlessly accepting everything that DFF says. So I do like that. I am happy that that at least a few people are engaging with the content in that way. That is very encouraging for me. So thank you to those of you who have reached out. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, comment with the moment that you realized DFF were full of shit, or the argument that made you realize that these guys do not know what they're talking about, or actually they are being dishonest here. Let me know. I think that could be a fun conversation. I want to read all those and reply to them. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night, day, whatever. Bye.